Okay, we have Bitcoin back above 100,000 right now. Again, I continue to believe it's headed towards about 120 to 125,000 to complete the blow off top. A lot of hope ahead of Inauguration Day that there will be a U.S. crypto reserve. Again, Trump's election win has given us an election rally. The crypto community really likes that Trump is crypto friendly. I think that could resume surrounding Inauguration Day. Trump opened to the idea of establishing a strategic reserve with U.S.-based coins. Then it goes on to name some of the favorite cryptocurrencies in this article and others. And MicroStrategy continues its buying and accumulating of Bitcoin. Seeing this week after week now. MicroStrategy buying more, total holdings to over 450,000 Bitcoin. Again, some things out there sparking rally after we came back down to the trend line of support that I've talked about on Bitcoin in my last several updates, talking to you about that trend line being tested. We have the hearings here on the confirmation hearings on Trump's Treasury nominee, who is pro cryptocurrency, pro Wall Street. Again, a lot of different things together. MicroStrategy was up 1.77% today. Again, I continue to believe MicroStrategy is going to get one more push higher into this trend line, getting a massive percentage gain and complete the blow off top. And I think that will form a large divergence here on the daily chart. I think it will form a large divergence on the weekly chart as well. But again, I think that we're going to see both Bitcoin and MicroStrategy get one more surge higher. And both of them appear to be forming these little bull flag patterns here, these little bull flag patterns on both the Bitcoin price and MicroStrategy. Bitcoin formed a head and shoulders just like the S&P, and now the S&P and Bitcoin are both forming bull flag patterns surrounding their 100 period moving averages. Isn't that interesting? Go watch my S&P video. I'll link it at the end of this video if you want to see that pattern. But I think we're going to get this larger divergence, and then I think MicroStrategy is going to top it again. This could be, up, significantly and double over here, more than double over, if we do end up reaching that trend line. So we'll be watching double over from our recent lows over here just recently there. Again, Bitcoin went down to that trend line I talked to you about. I told you if horizontal support breaks, we have this trend line that we talked about and these lows down here pointing down towards the same area. That has formed this bull flag. The head and shoulders is evolving into a bull flag. I told you I thought that this was a wave 4. And I told you that, again, the head and shoulders measures way down here to 74,000 down here. I told you I didn't think that was going to play out because I think it's wave 4, and I think we're about to get wave 5, reaching up into 120 to 125,000 or so, a little bit higher than that if we take our time reaching it. But right now, we've formed the bull flag, and we're trying to break out of it. We'll be watching to see what happens. If we end up turning back down, you can get a higher low here. But again, it could be with our bottoming tail. A little hard to see right here, but bring it up closer, you can see we're trying to break out, and we had that bottoming tail. We broke horizontal support, and let me zoom out here, going back over here, horizontal support. We violated that level. We got a bottoming tail. We dropped 6%, and we found a bottom right here with this doji. Do you see this doji right here? It's right there. Do you see that? That's the doji. We dropped 6%, and then we recovered all the losses in one day, and we bounced off that trend line that I was talking about. We've come back up above the 10 and the 20 period moving average, and we formed this bull flag pattern. Now, again, maybe we pull back, or maybe we break out and we get a more shallow pullback, but we're going to be watching. Is this area tested? But again, it could be with the Inauguration Day come Monday, which is Martin Luther King Day. The stock market will be closed. That, again, we pull back ahead of that or right after that. But if we have bottomed with wave 4, we're now starting wave 5, and this could be the first wave of wave 5, and we can get wave 1 and 2 and form a bottom. But I told you I was looking for a bounce off of this trend line. If we broke this level, should we break it, which we did, buyers were right at that trend line, as we've talked about at great length and detail. I think the head and shoulders pattern is a fake out pattern, okay? And as I've said, if we start moving above the right shoulder here and then moving above the high, which is the resistance zone right here, if you start moving above this high and moving here above this high, it's canceling out. It cancels out the right shoulder if you start moving higher. And then over here, if you move higher, it totally cancels out the pattern. Again, I continue to be bullish on Bitcoin, believing it's moving towards 120 to 125,000. Now we're back above 100,000. Try to do it during the session there on Thursday. Now we're into the Friday session here. We'll see. Do we get a topping tail at this area and turn back down, or do we close above the trend line here of the bull flag? And if we get some kind of topping tail reversal, we can still come back down into this area and then go on our way. We'll be watching, or get a move up here and then get a throwback or something and do something like that. So we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But right now, Bitcoin at the moment that I'm making the videos, we start the Friday session here. We're just into it a couple of hours here, and we're up 2%. We had a sell-off, but it rebounded back up, and we ended up down just 0.5%. And then prior to that, was the Thursday session. Prior to that, on the Wednesday session, we had that strong move up 4%. And again, building upon and getting a confirmation of follow through to our bottoming tail with our doji. So again, continue to be bullish on Bitcoin. Even the head and shoulders pattern is a fake and bouncing off the trend line that I talked to you about. And again, I told you momentum. My last video, I talked about how momentum was turning back to bullish here. With this bar right here, we were confirming getting back above the moving averages, and we were seeing momentum right after that turn back to bullish, and we had that big surge higher. But before this big push higher, again, momentum flipped back to bullish, and that flipped the trend signals back to bullish, as I warned about and did that alert video. And we were confirming the doji pattern here with this bar and just starting this next rally back up off of that doji low. Now, I told you divergences were forming on indicators, and again, told you we were looking for a bounce off this trend line just above our 100 period moving average. Again, we still may come back and flirt with this area some more if this breakout right here fails, but you have all these bullish divergences that I've been talking about here with momentum. Again, I think the head and shoulders ends up failing. It measures down here to the 74,000 area near our 200 period. Our 200 period is just under 75,000 right now, and it's just below that at the 74,000 area, at the low 74,000 area where this pattern measures to. So I think again the pattern will end up failing, and I think we push on up through to new highs above the resistance levels that I've been talking about. But the bullish divergence is playing out beautifully, as I warned you. Again, we likely would try to get a bounce off of this trend line, which again we tagged it right on the nose. I remain bullish on Bitcoin, and now we're seeing not only momentum signals flip back to bullish, but now the trending signals in the daily time frame. And remember, the weekly signals are still bullish. We tried to flip momentum earlier as we started to break down, but it couldn't stay that way. The signals, the momentum signals are reverting right back to bullish. Again, the bulls remain in control in the weekly time frame. I remain bullish on Bitcoin, and now we're seeing the daily signals with momentum and the trend signals all beginning to turn back to bullish. Bitcoin is wanting to go higher. Here it is. Again, look at this beautiful bounce off our trend line. I told you if we broke this trend line and broke the horizontal support level, which we could not do, we got a bottoming tail there, then again, the 200 period, this horizontal support at 74,000, and again, our 200 period is just above that area there. But this would be the target level if that head and shoulders were to play out. I don't think it's going to play out. We'll see if we break out and back test, or if we break out and get a push back into the trading range and test these lows. We just start going parabolic. We'll be watching. Talked about this bullish divergence right here on the RSI. We had the triple bearish divergence that tipped us off to the top. Talked about that. And again, when we had this top, we were rallying up into the trend lines I warned you about on the weekly chart, and we formed this triple bearish divergence. It played out beautifully. Coin dropped about 18%, nearly 18%. Everybody starts turning bearish. Oh, the head and shoulders. Here we go. We're going to have this big sell-off. And I told you, again, I think it's a fake out pattern. I think we're going to go make new highs. I remain bullish on Bitcoin because my weekly signals are still bullish. We just had a pullback before Inauguration Day, and remember, we had the election rally. Trump won the election. Crypto community likes Trump's crypto policies, and we had this November rally celebrating that, and going to get now an SEC chair that's friendly to crypto, not Gensler. But we'll see what happens. We're trying to break out here on Friday. We'll be watching. Is it a fake out right here and we go back down? Do we end up with a topping tail, or do we get a legitimate breakout of the bull flag pattern? We'll be watching that. But like I said, I believe Bitcoin's going towards the next resistance level if we get above here to 120 to 120,000 in 120 to 125,000, I should say, in all likelihood. Now again, we had the MACD have the negative divergence here. The negative divergence, I didn't mark it on this chart, but the negative divergence, we talked about that at great length and detail, along with the RSI triple negative divergence. And I told you that a bullish divergence would likely form here if we could test this trend line and bounce. I also talked about the higher low scenario if we had bottomed over here and getting back into positive territory without moving to a new low. I talked about both of those scenarios, but I told you this trend line was a trend line of interest because it was near my 100 period moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. Now you have this bullish divergence. Again, Bitcoin's likely going to see the MACD go up here and again probably form a massive divergence with this peak over here, and could happen on into February, and we could see a rally over the next several weeks here, the rest of January, maybe a pullback, and the rally continue. And again, I continue to talk about the election rally resuming with Inauguration Day, and that giving us the next push higher into the resistance levels. And I believe that will give us wave 5. I think wave 5 is now started here with this bottoming tail at this key support level. Just bring it up close. Again, you can see that bottoming tail. We broke this level. We dropped 6%. We bounced off that trend line. I would talk to you about that. And now we have this bull flag, and we're trying to break out. We'll see what happens. If we get a topping tail, we drop back into the trading range. You still might come back and test this level and then go higher. But again, I do think you're going to exceed this level eventually and clear the resistance zone here. We'll see if we do that immediately right here and now and then back test, or do we come back into the trading range and test this trend line again and horizontal support before going higher? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But again, I think Bitcoin is going to go higher. Our head and shoulders pattern has evolved into a bull flag that's trying to break out at the moment. We'll see if it's successful. If we do go back down again, could get confirmation of a higher low on the RSI. We'll be watching to see what happens. Or do we have a legitimate breakout right here, right now, going into Inauguration Day next week? I talked about these bullish divergences on the 60-minute chart with the RSI and the MACD, and again, going positive. Talked about that. And then we have the bullish divergence that formed on parameter. I talked about that. Now it's moving back into positive territory. We're above the 200 period moving average. The 50 is still below it. So we'll be watching. Do we go back into the trading range of the bull flag and have this breakout fail, or do we have a legitimate breakout and end up getting a bigger move and end up back testing and get a much bigger move higher? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But again, I remain bullish on Bitcoin. I think we're going higher, and I think again, parameter suggesting that we're about to get a bigger rally. But like I said, being more work to be done to validate the bottom here, but I believe that the bottom is likely in on Bitcoin with that bottoming tail at the trend line that we've talked about at great length and detail. I remain bullish on Bitcoin. Again, on the weekly chart, we tried to turn this week at the lows. We had tried to turn momentum back to red with the momentum line here in the weekly time frame, and I told you when I showed you that earlier, the final print won't be till Friday, and if we bounced off my trend line, it might go away before the week ends. If it remained there by the end of the week, by Sunday's close, then we might see a bigger sell-off. But again, as I continue to say, I believe here in the weekly time frame, we're going to see a divergence here with momentum develop, and it's still in positive territory. The bulls are still in control. I think you're going to see a divergence develop here, and then I think you're going to push on higher. My signals, which are correct, remain bullish here in the weekly time frame. We saw momentum turn back to bullish after we got the higher low at 52,000. momentum signals quickly turned in the weekly time frame back to bullish after that, and then eventually we had the breakout, and we saw the trend signals begin to turn just before the breakout, or with the breakout here of the cloud. We saw the trend signals begin to turn back to bullish. I think you're going to get a divergence here in the weekly time frame with momentum, and on other indicators like the RSI and the money flow and the stochastic, things like that. I think you're going to see a divergence develop. We're going higher. Signals remain bullish here in the weekly time frame. I warned you in my last update that momentum signals were flipping, and now we're seeing trend signals begin to flip here. We've had the momentum line turn back to bullish. We had this bullish signal right here, this bullish buy signal right here, just like we had it over here at support. Here it gave us that right shoulder, and again momentum flipped. But I told you again, I think that there is a fake pattern going on here with the head and shoulders, and I believe that we've got wave 4 going on here, and I think it's done, and I think we're now starting wave 5. And again, now look at what happened. The background getting a bullish signal right here, flipping it back to bullish, a rally, and again the cloud has flipped and now starting to rise, and we're now starting to see again this line right here represents a swing move. It's been neutral and now it's turning back to green. So again, the cloud is flipping to green. We're flipping the swing trend signal here back to green. The momentum line, and you got the balance of power going positive. You got the background, so you got everything turning back to bullish here. And again, Bitcoin's going higher for the blow off top to higher levels. It still may pull back some to test this low, okay, or come back here towards the low end of the cloud or something for a test. But I think that again, Bitcoin has likely bottomed at that trend line. My signals, which are correct, turn all back to bullish, validating that after the momentum flip. And here, remember I told you in my last update, we saw the bullish impulse line right here, this blue line right here. It turned the day before the momentum line began to flip, and which we talked about. We got the bullish buy signal here. We've got the bullish divergence. I talked about that developing and taking us lower to that trend line. And so again, now we're about to try to go into positive territory right here. So I think you're going to see new all-time highs on Bitcoin. We may pull back, but I think you're going to see new all-time highs on Bitcoin and pull back ahead of the inauguration day or after it. We'll see. I think we will get a continuation of the election rally. I think Bitcoin's going to go higher into this quarter. We've had the correction since December. It gives Bitcoin more time now to go to my trend lines of resistance and my target levels on Bitcoin. As we sold off during the month of December and January here, and it's going to take a little bit longer to reach my objective target. Again, still think Bitcoin's going to 120 to 125,000. We've got the Bitcoin trend flipping back to bullish. This is the Bitcoin risk model back to bullish here. The risk line's turning back to bullish, and we're moving back into a risk-on environment now with Bitcoin. Very positive things. And again, my daily signals all flipping back to bullish. First momentum, I sent you out a warning video when that was happening. Now, I told you the trend signals will follow, and now we're seeing that. And here with the risk model, signals are turning back to bullish. So bullish events are taking place that are likely going to take Bitcoin much higher. Again, I think Bitcoin is going to be able to, in the weekly time frame, get back above this trend line right here and go up to this upper channel line, and that's going to take it to about 120 to 125,000, depending on when we come into contact with that level. But we could see an extension of the election rally, which gave us this move right here. But I think that'll be wave 5, and I think we'll get something like this where we go up on up into that level there, whether we reach it sooner or whether we reach it a little bit later, February, or if it drags out into March. But I think you're likely going to reach it here in the first quarter. This is the Bitcoin weekly chart. Again, on the pullback, the signals turned back to bearish. We hit that trend line of support I talked about. The signals went back to bearish, and we formed these bullish divergences that I talked about right here. And that has now taken us back into the positive region here, back into the positive portion of the cloud. We may still pull back and test this level and get a higher low, or go higher and then do it later. But again, the bullish divergences that I've been talking about are now playing out on indicators. The signals turn back to bullish. We got to flip. We got to be able to flip signals to bullish and then be able to clear the resistance zone. Again, we've got the signals turning back to bullish. Now we need to clear the resistance zone. We could pull back. Ahead of that, we'll be watching. I think Bitcoin is starting to form divergences, larger divergences like right here. I think we're going to get a larger divergence here and go up again towards 125,000, end up forming a larger divergence on indicators and take us up towards the upper channel line on Bitcoin. Look at the upper channel line here. Again, look at this. We're now getting an accumulation signal this week. We had the distribution over here, had a lot of distribution here and over here. Again, I believe we have wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and I believe that we're in wave 5, and I think wave 5 is 1, 2, 3. I think this is 4, and now I think we're going to get wave 5 and go up and slam up into that upper channel line where I think Bitcoin's going to top out, in all likelihood finish the blow off top. But look at what we have. Peak a stinkin' boo. We've got an accumulation signal here in the weekly time frame this week as we hit that low on that trend line, dropping 6% there. That sell-off below support, but then buyers came back in at that trend line of support that I talked about. So again, I think we have a wave 4 correction. I think it's likely done. We're starting the wave 5 right now, and I think we're going up towards this trend line, probably towards 120 to 125,000. Signals have done a very good job in marking accumulation and distribution. We're getting an accumulation signal here, and we had it earlier in the week when we began to bounce off of that trend line of support. We're seeing my signals turn back to bullish, and again, I think that the divergences have now completed a bottom on my signals in the daily time frame and on my 4-hour chart signals there. We're seeing trend and momentum signals turn back to bullish, and I think that's a positive sign for Bitcoin that the correction is likely done. But we're coming up to resistance areas, and here you can see resistance right here. Got to be able to clear this level. We are seeing momentum turn back to bullish with the ribbon turning back to bullish, but we got to be able to clear this level. We're trying to do it right now. We'll see what it looks like by Friday's close and by going into the weekend. Do we get a bigger pullback? We could get a pullback and test this low, or again get a bigger move higher, get a bigger move upward and then pull back. We'll see which way it goes. A more shallow pullback with that. I warned you, my last update, momentum signals were flipping back to bullish, and now we're seeing trend signals turn back to bullish. So again, very, very positive for Bitcoin. I warned you that, again, we could see the bullish divergences form on the MACD, and here with the price oscillator, that's exactly what happened, and we formed the bullish divergence. And now, again, just above our 100 period moving average, and now we're getting strike. We still could move. We're getting back into the positive portion of the cloud here. We still could pull back and get a higher low, but I think, again, Bitcoin has likely bottomed with an ABC corrective move, and I think we're beginning the first wave of the minor wave 5. I think we've got that first smaller subwave developing here. I warned you over and over, Bitcoin was bouncing off of the VWAP support right here and this support, this 3-tier support level right here. We broke this horizontal support and we came down to this next tier support and we bounced right there. So again, I think that Bitcoin is likely going to go and exceed this peak right here. I think the head and shoulders pattern is a fake out. I told you if we didn't have the support level hold, there wasn't much in the way of support here. And again, that target of 74,000 could have been tested coming down here to the breakout point and broke the trend line here, broke out, back tested, came up to this level, and then we got that breakout. So again, I think you're going to continue. And like I said, I think we're starting the wave 5 right now. And we did find support at that lower end of the rainbow cloud. Like I said, we could have went a little bit lower, but again, the rainbow cloud continues to hold a support. So again, the bullish signals remain and the balance of power remains positive in the weekly time frame. My signals, which are correct, remain bullish in the weekly time frame, and now we've seen momentum and the trend signals revert back to bullish for Bitcoin off of that trend line where we bounced off of. And I warned you that that trend line was likely where we were headed to get a bounce. Talked about that before we ever reached it. Oscillators getting bullish divergences and going back into positive territory all over the place here. So, and flipping back to bullish momentum and trend signals turning back, getting buy signals here. So again, I think the selling is likely done, and we're now resuming the advance of the election rally, and I think that could resume with the inauguration day. Even if we pull back, again, I still think that the low is going to hold in all likelihood here, that we broke horizontal support and got that bottoming tail. Just want to show you all my different signals that they're forming these bullish divergences and turning positive. And here we have another one of my oscillators turning positive with the in the positive region there with a bullish divergence with that low right there. And again, as I'm making the video, we've tried to rally. We're selling off a little bit. We'll see how we close on Friday. We may end up getting a pullback into the trading range here over the weekend and on into Friday's close, followed by the weekend and going into inauguration day. We may get a pullback and then try to break out later if we don't do it right here and now. This might be a fake out move if we do end up getting a bigger pullback. So we'll see what happens. Break out now. Again, either way it does it, it's fine. But again, we still may get a pullback at some point, which I think is likely. Again, momentum still bullish here. Some momentum tried to turn bearish right here. Momentum turned bullish right after we bounced, getting a higher low at 52,000 there. And we moved up a little bit. Momentum flipped back to bullish. Remains bullish here. Again, I think we can resume the advance. But signals in the weekly time frame are bullish. That's why I still think we go higher. Hold off nearly 18%, and everybody starts getting bearish. They weren't bearish when I told you we were slamming into those trend lines and likely topping out for the short term, which again, right here, this trend line going back to the 2021 low that separates the two 2021 peaks. This trend line right here, again, I told you these weekly charts, again, we were likely going to rally up to these trend lines and stall, and we did. That was correct. And that's where we formed the triple negative divergence on the RSI in the daily time frame. Now I think we're going to resume it, the advance, and if we can clear this trend line right here, we can go up to this trend line, including the shadow, and again, that might take us towards 120,000 or maybe 125,000 if we take our time getting there on into later into the quarter one here. Though I think you're likely going to see a peak here. We're going to see recession begin to show up here at some point in the first or second quarter in all likelihood. Turn off these trend lines beautifully. Then after we dropped almost 18%, then everybody starts getting bearish. The people that told us it wasn't going to happen. Now we're rebounding, and I told you I thought we would, again, get this wave 4 correction and then resume the advance. And here's my L8 wave count. This is what I think is going on. I think we have the final wave here going on of the count. I think we'll get 5 little waves going up into this trend line right here, and maybe it takes a little bit longer. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's like what I have right here going into maybe February over the next few weeks. Maybe it goes towards the end of February, on into March, into the first quarter here. But then I think we're going to see a dump and come back and break this trend line right here. And again, I think we've got 5 waves higher here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now we're getting this 5th and final wave unfolding in 5 waves. And I think we're pushing on higher here. That's why I still think we go higher, because I think we're going up into this channel line to get that 5th and final wave, and then I think that will be followed by the reversal. I do think that will be the conclusion of the blow-off top for Bitcoin. And lastly, as I've said, again, I think we're going to end up forming this divergence on the RSI. In the weekly time frame, we have this larger divergence like what we had over here, and I told you that may be all she wrote. But again, with this trend line, I think we're turning off of it here only to correct and get wave 4. I think we're now going to push on up through it, and here with our log scaling, and I think we're going to push up into this trend line, and I think you're going to get this divergence here in the coming weeks ahead. Maybe it's just a few weeks, maybe it's several weeks. But when it's done, I think it will complete the divergence, and it's likely going to be in the first quarter here. And again, this can drag on into February, possibly March, but I think you're going to see that happen, and then I think we're going to see Bitcoin begin to price in recession. But I think that's where the top is going to be. Now, again, when we get there, nobody's going to be bearish and think that that's a top. Just like back at 69,000 over here, they didn't think that that was the case. The divergences were forming, and we had the divergences on the monthly time frame, which is what we're getting right now too. And again, back here at the December high, nobody thought we were going to sell off. We were slammed into these trend lines. I told you we were going up to these trend lines, and again, very good chance we're going to get a reaction off those trend lines. We did. The one here with the log scaling and the linear scaling I've been talking about. After we drop maybe 18%, then everybody says, oh, Bitcoin's going to crash and go down. We're all going to die. As Bitcoin do hit that trend line I showed you that I talked about, I told you we were going to that trend line. I told you I thought we had wave 4, and I thought the rally would resume, and that is what is happening right now. So again, looks like I'm going to be correct about that bounce off that trend line and a reversal back to the upside. Remain bullish on Bitcoin. This is where I think Bitcoin's going, probably to 120, 125,000. I think you'll see that in this first quarter, and that is the next level of resistance. It will be a major top for Bitcoin. People will not believe that. If it got higher than this peak over here, then it's going to keep going. That's what the conventional wisdom is going to be. And again, Bitcoin is likely going to top when this divergence completes on the RSI here in the weekly time frame. We've had a rebound this week. We're up just under 7% at the moment. Again, I think that we'll continue that, but we could get a pullback ahead of the inauguration day or just after inauguration day. Be watching, but I do think Bitcoin has bottomed and completed wave 4.